let's talk about professional negligence. Okay, the negligence of a doctor, an architect, a lawyer. But in this case, we're going to talk about the negligence of a real estate agent. Let's say that you have a real estate agent who is selling a house and he meets with his client, and the client says to him, listen, I've got some water stains in the basement. I'm certain that it's a leak. I've seen water come in. I've had to pump it out, but it's not terrible. I'm afraid that if we disclose that information, nobody's going to buy the house because, one of the selling features of the house is this nice finished basement. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rip out the drywall. I'm going to put new drywall up. It'll take me a day or so. And it's not supposed to rain. So when you show the house, nobody will notice that there was water damage or stains on the existing drywall. And the real estate agent thinks to himself, well, I want to sell the house. That's how I make my money. I want to sell it. And, there's no guarantee that it's really actively leaking. I think that this is okay. So I'm going to go along with this. I'm not going to disclose this information to the other broker. I'm not going to disclose it to the potential buyer. But we're going to give it a go. And as long as the guy fixes it and puts new drywall up, we're good. Okay? So now the purchaser comes in with their home inspector, love the house, right? They want to move forward with the purchase. And home inspector looks around. There's no visible evidence of any water in the basement. And so he gives his seal of approval and ultimately leads to, a finalized contract, negotiation, and a closing date. And we're all set. So closing happens and the purchaser comes in, and within the first month or two, there's a massive torrential rainstorm. And while he's, sitting in his basement watching TV, water starts to drip in through the drywall, on the floor, through the drywall, and he's panicked. So he calls in a contractor to make repairs, and as the guy is ripping the drywall that's now wet, the new replaced drywall off the wall, he says, look at these white marks on the foundation, right? This is indicative of a number of flooding incidents. This isn't a result of this torrential downpour that we just had. Look at the different levels, the different height of watermark stains, right? So this is something that's been going on for a while. When you bought the house, did anyone tell you that there was an issue? And, you say no. And as your contractor continues to inspect the situation, he says, well, look at this. There's a crack in the foundation here. And this apparently is where the water is seeping in from. You've got a problem. This is going to cost you $30,000 to fix. All right? You go upstairs, you tell your wife, you're afraid that she's going to start yelling at you. You got your suitcase packed because you're afraid of what she's going to say. Right? I relied on you. This was your home inspector. You told me this was a good house. Right? Well, you go and you contact a lawyer, and the lawyer says you may have a negligence claim, a malpractice claim against your real estate agent. Let's look at how that would happen. Let's assume for a minute, purchaser files a lawsuit. He files the lawsuit against the prior homeowner, his real estate agent, the seller's real estate agent, and the home inspector. I want to talk about that negligence claim with respect to the brokers. Okay, now, we learn through discovery that the seller made repairs to the drywall and knew that there was a leak. We also learn that the agent was aware of it. Now let's put that together with the elements of negligence. Number one, does the real estate agent for the seller owe a duty of care to you, the purchaser? And the answer is yes. He is mandated through his license, under statute, under the administrative code, to provide you with accurate information, to do a certain level of due diligence with respect to the listing and sale of a house. And so it's clearly established that he owes you a duty of care. Now let's talk about the breach. Can you establish a breach of that duty of care? Well, we know that this broker, he didn't direct the seller to replace the drywall. He didn't direct the seller to hide the condition. He simply omitted the fact about the basement when he discussed the house with your real estate agent. So is he negligent? He didn't do it actively here. He didn't actively hide the condition. He didn't suggest to the seller, why don't you, lie about it and put up the drywall. He simply knew about it and omitted it. Well, to breach a duty of care, it does not have to be an action. It can be inaction as well. So his omission, his knowing omission, he intentionally omitted the fact that there had been water damage in the basement when he discussed the sale of the house with your real estate agent. That is a breach of duty. How do we know? We're going to look at the reasonable person standard. Would a reasonable real estate agent, under the same set of circumstances, have done the same thing? And the answer to the question is no. A reasonable real estate agent, now this is interesting that I'm saying this, a reasonable real estate agent. Why am I saying that? Because when you apply the reasonable person standard, you must do so based upon the person that you're trying to apply the standard to. So if you are a doctor, the reasonable person standard is, would a reasonable physician under the same circumstances act in a particular way? If you're an architect, would a reasonable architect? If you're a driver, would a reasonable motorist? If you are a store owner, would a reasonable business owner? So the reasonable person standard applies to you in the position and situation that you are in. So getting back to the example, your real estate or the seller's real estate agent, would a reasonable real estate agent have done the same thing? No. The reasonable real estate agent would have said, I'm not permitted to omit a material fact about a house that I'm aware of. I've got to disclose that. So in this scenario, it is quite clear that a breach of duty has occurred. Now, damages? Yeah, there's damages. You've got $30,000, $35,000 worth of repair work that needs to be done. And can you show that the breach and the damages were proximately connected, proximately caused, right? And the answer is yes. Because but for the omission of the real estate agent, you might not have purchased the house.